future, talk radio will actually educate, inspire, and make you think. The future is now. Topics and music that affect your life from Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
And greetings and salutations, everyone. You have tuned into a brand spanking new show here on UBN Radio. It is titled Great Sex with Dr. Dawn. And I am your host, Walt Lusk, and we're here every other Monday at 7 p.m. Pacific here at Universal Broadcasting Radio Network. And we're going to have a fun show, and it's a call-in show. So please get on the phones. The number is area code 323-843-2826. That's 323-843-2826. And we're going to talk today about why bother with the whole thing. Why bother and have sex? So Dr. Dawn Etkes is a trained psychologist and licensed marriage and family child counselor, and has been in practice for over 30 years. Yes, that's right, folks, 3 decades. And he is a trained sex therapist from UCLA. He's a local boy. So, Dr. Dawn, welcome to the show.
Yay, yes. I just wanted to start out with putting forth the quote of the day from a gentleman named Arnold Becker, which is, the most sensual part of the body is the imagination. And this show is about your imagination and feeling as great as you can.
Okay, keep going. And the most important sexual organ is the space between your ears.
Very much so. But both men and women, this is the primary sex organ. And so this show is going to be really about stimulating your sex organ to the best way possible for you and your needs. And one of the things that I will probably be repeating at various times is that you're a sexy, wonderful person whether you choose to have sex or not. There's no right or wrong number of times or ways to have sex. What you're looking for is what's a healthy, safe way for you to feel really great. And that's one of the main reasons to bother with sex, is to feel good. The only really good reason to have sex is because it makes you feel better with your life. So we're going to be exploring that today, and we have many other tidbits about life and what goes on out there in the world, and we'll see what feels good for you. And please let me know any questions you might have. I'm delighted to be of help to you.
We're going to start with a segment every week called Sex in the News. And there was one that's a little while ago, but we wanted to touch on this one first. It was a gentleman that was arrested in England, and not only had too much to drink, but he'd had too much to smoke. And he decided to try and have sex with the bonnet, or the hood, of the ambulance. And he was arrested, and actually he got arrested for possession and disorderly conduct. But I thought that, you had mentioned that one, and I thought that was interesting that an ambulance, of all things, was something, after him being stoned and drunk, was something he chose to run to.
I'm not sure in that story if they specified where he tried to have sex.
It was in the bonnet, it was in the hood.
Oh, all right,
Yep.
good, all right, yes. Well, that's a good illustration that please be conscious of what you're doing sexually, and so if you're going to imbibe something, at least know who you're with or what you're with.
And a story that just came out this week is, we all probably know that sex dolls are becoming, the thing. And there's a brothel in Paris that has 3 of them, and they charge the equivalent of $110 per session or per hour. And there's some folks that want it shut down. They say that it promotes rape. And but the interesting thing is the brothel is not billed as a brothel; it's billed as a sex toy club.
Yeah.
So they're playing with sex toys. And so it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out and how it's going to be accepted or not around the world.
Well, the intriguing thing about that is, technology is always the cutting edge usually of what's displayed sexually. When VCRs first came out, they were essentially showing sex tapes, DVDs, and now they're working on ways to have sex whether you're with someone or not. I mean, there are many sex toys out there that people use individually, but now they're working on these detailed dolls, and at some point, they're going to get to the point where they can perfect the AI that these dolls can interact with humans and actually have sex. And actually the dolls, just so someone has an idea, they're called dolls, but in that story in Paris, the dolls are 4 feet 7 inches tall. And so this is something that's the wave of the future. And of course, the question is, will this allow people to feel good about what they're doing sexually, or is it going to be demeaning in some way in depicting men or women as things? And so that's always been a big issue in terms of the men and women I've dealt with in my practice who've been hurt. As many times they felt that people have treated them as things. So will this sex dolls, and especially once they can be more animated, will they learn to lead people to feel that everyone is things that they have sex with, or many people? And so this is going to be something that we're going to see very much in the future, and it's going to be very much the cutting edge is how they apply technology to essentially what will become robots and then potentially androids. So we shall see. This will be an unfolding story.
It will. Interestingly enough, mostly, of course, most men visit the brothel, if you will, but there are some couples that attend it as well. From what I read, the next phase of all this is going to be virtual.
Oh, very much so. Actually
put those little big doodads on your face, and away you go.
Oh, well, they're actually working on suits, body suits, so that somebody 6,000 miles away can caress you, or you can caress somebody else. And so technology like that would be great for service people who are at the other end of the world, but at the same time, I mean, how much will that replace our real intimacy? So we'll see. As I think technology is one of the main things we're going to keep an eye on when we do Sex in the News.
I wanted to start basically with a little ditty from an article that came out a couple years ago. We think about sex. We fantasize about sex. We spend an inordinate amount of time and money in pursuit of sex. When you consider AIDS, childbirth, honor killings, our survival and death often are intertwined with sex. Thus, it is worthwhile for us to spend some time on what scientists have learned about sexuality. But there's a catch. Scientists, like many in society, are prudish. That is why nearly every psychological model of well-being ignores every mention of human sexuality, and why every recent book on happiness and well-being ignores sexuality. So that's one of the reasons why we have the show and why we're going to be concentrating on that aspect.
Well, there's too much sexual repression in the world. And again, this show is about giving you information, and then you choose what to do with it. One of the critical things when I talk about a healthy, balanced sex life is that you feel good within yourself, and you're also operating within whatever your values and your spiritual beliefs are. So just because somebody else is doing it, you have to really question about you feeling good in yourself. Now, of course, one of the main things is to experiment and be out there and to learn, what feels good for you. That's why the bother with sex is about learning about you, and you can do that with or without a sex partner. Whatever your orientation is, you can feel good in yourself, again, whether you're having sex or not. But again, the key is to do it in a healthy way, and then that's going to be one of the themes in terms of what we explore here in the show.
And there are many healthy and scientific benefits as to why we should have sex, and we're going to talk about that. What I'm going to do here is kind of go broad, and then we can dive in. A good sex life is critical and crucial to both our emotional and our physical well-being. Does more sex mean better sex? Yes, and there's also health benefits. It smooths over sometimes the rough challenges in a relationship. It decreases stress, boosts immune systems, and orgasms can be life extending. So having sex, you might live longer to have more sex.
Well, and the other benefit is that you actually can generate oxytocin, which is also
Yes.
referred to as the cuddle chemical at
Yes,
times.
absolutely.
And that's part of the high that comes from it. But again, there's no right or wrong amount of times to have sex, or you're, again, a great person if you choose to have zero sex. It's good that you educate yourself about the options and then you decide. Again, you could choose to have sex with 10 people, but the question is the effect. So sex is only good if you're doing something that makes you feel good at the end of the day with yourself. If you feel lousy about what you've done sexually, then there's an issue.
But if your partner wants to have sex with you often, it means they think you're sexy, which of course would help to boost your self-esteem.
Yes. That's
And lots of sex
many
stimulates
delights.
hormones that makes you you love and desire it even more. And again, testosterone, dopamine, and oxytocin, which we're going to talk about in a minute. And regular sex produces much more benefits as well. So we're going to talk about that. But the point is, you can't quite do it all the time. And and there's a book that came out 2008 called 365 Nights. Wife wrote this book and it was a gift to her husband. They had just turned 40 and said, we are going to have sex every single day for a year just to see how it works and what happens. And
one thing I want to add to that right away for people is to realize, again, one of the things I will be repeating, and one of the things I want to teach you is positive repetition. To be aware of things, because sometimes people talk about sex like that's the best thing for you. You have to decide that yourself. So you can be a great individual or a couple and have sex once a month, as long as both of you feel good with that. There are actually couples out there that have sexless marriages and they're totally happy. And I've
Yes.
seen couples who've had sex several times a day and they feel lousy with each other. So just having sex is not enough. It's how you have sex in a way that feels good for you.
But before we dive in and you're thinking to yourself, holy smokes, am I supposed to have sex 365 days a year? A lot of times, obviously, for many obvious reasons, it won't work. But they gave us some little suggestions. First and foremost, have daily bite-sized sex. And what that means is aim to do one simple, sexy act every day for each other. Sex doesn't have to mean intercourse. It could be long, deep kisses or teasing or a couple minutes of oral sex for one or both. Bite-sized sex moments are more realistic and achievable and will keep you both sexually connected without requiring an Olympian event.
And that's absolutely right, because people have different bodies, they have different staminas, and they have different ages. And one of the critical things I want you to get from this is that sex is not the purvey of somebody in their 20s, 30s, 40s. You could be in your 90s and still have a wonderful sex life. And one of the ways to do that is to reach out and simply touch. Many people don't understand the word masturbation. They think only in terms of that means you pleasure yourself, but actually reaching out and touching your partner is a form of masturbation. And so touching each other and caressing each other with your hands, with or without clothes, is one of the great ways to have sex. And again, it's so important to realize that sex isn't just intercourse. When everybody thinks that it's only intercourse, they set up tension, and tension is the greatest enemy on earth to sexual functioning.
Yes, it is. When you look at reasons to have sex, there's basically four major reasons, and then we're going to do some sub ones, and we can dive in. Four major reasons are physical, goals, emotional, and then insecurity. So under physical, it relieves tension. It's, of course, very pleasurable, and there are lots of benefits of that. Physical desirability and experience seeking. Under goals, there is, or they say resources here, trying to obtain the objects of your desire. Social status, maybe your lover is really great looking and that, that arm candy is fabulous. Yeah. Revenge, maybe you're out to hurt somebody. And then utilitarian, using sex to gain advantage in a relationship. Emotionals are pretty obvious, love and commitment and expression of love for at least one of the partners.
And one of the most important aspects of all that's been around quite a while is procreational sex. And so that's one of the reasons that people turn so much to it. The only thing is that they unfortunately turn it into work at times. And I've dealt with numerous couples in my practice where they are so much into trying to be regimented about sex and making it happen that they create the tension and create a paradox where they wind up having less sex and they wind up going months and months without a pregnancy. And so they wind up coming to my office to learn to relax and just have fun with each other, which is one of the critical things about sex, is to have fun with what you're doing. Otherwise, why do it?
And lastly is insecurity. Self-esteem, of course, is a boost. Duty and pleasure. Maybe if, you have to have the duty to please your partner. And then mate guarding. You want to do it to ward off poachers.
The only thing I'm a little concerned about is in terms of duty. No one has to have sex with anybody. That's basically part of what you work out within your relationship. And sometimes one partner or the other just doesn't feel like it. And that's, they have a right to their mind and body. So nobody is required to have sex with anybody else.
That is true. Then looking at benefits for sex, and the article starts out with, why wait? Do it tonight.
Well, if there's a desk handy, you can always use that.
Well, if you have an ambulance nearby, you could try the bonnet.
Well, there might be other areas that other people might prefer. We don't want to try to have you just locked into one way to have sex with ambulances, but actually consider trying your partner, depending on who's in your life.
The first one is it makes you look younger. Older men and women who are active look at least 5 to 7 years younger than their actual age. And the quality was as important as the quantity. So, and obviously, it's very loving. So, from a scientific perspective, sometimes it helps us look younger.
Well, one of the problems that people get into is this issue of quantity. It is really about, and Walter, it's great that you mentioned quality, and that's ultimately the bottom line. It's not how many times you have sex. It's how you feel with the experience. The quality of the experience is what you're looking to enhance. And again, what I want to bring out to you as you explore and you listen to new ways to be out there and exploring sex is you're looking to increase your quality, not necessarily your quantity. You want to feel really good in your primary sex organ, which is in your head, and that's what quality really speaks to.
Next is boosting your fertility, and I don't think we need to elaborate that. The more you have it, the higher quality of the sperm is. And it says here that if sex occurs in the last 2 days before the sperm was tested, it was better and decreased after about 10 days. So it doesn't mean you have to have it every day, but on a regular basis.
And by the way, there's a huge variance in people who do choose to have sex within their lives, is a huge variance of what the frequency is. And obviously there are times when the quality isn't quite there for you. And one of the things is to learn from that, is to talk with your partner and find out what feels good for them. So the number one way to have great sex is and one of the reasons really to bother with sex, is to increase closeness and communication with your partner.
Well, that brings me to a book that Dr. Don has written. It's called Loving with Passion. And I've read about the first third of it. And one of the main reasons and foundational of having great sex is communication.
Yes, and I wrote the book specifically because of that. There's so many books out there that lay out all these positions and sexual techniques, but unless your primary sex organ is engaged, unless you're really feeling good in your head, everything becomes so much confused, and things can get shut down no matter how many sexual techniques you try.
Next is it actually keeps you more healthy. It improves your immunoglobulin, which means it fights colds and the flu.
It's a great way to burn calories.
Oh, well, we're going to get to that. Yes, yes, indeed. And again, disease-proof your body, because keeping your body fitter longer, because again, it is great exercise. And I read one article, it exercises 637 muscles. And that's not a joke.
No, there's
calories.
There's a lot of delights to do out there. By the way, there's some reference potentially in thinking about that in terms of positions. you're absolutely fine if you just choose, if you're choosing to have sex in just one position that feels really good for both of you, that's fine. You don't have to do all the gyrations that are possible out there with the human body. But sometimes it's fun to try out something different. Again, it's something that stimulates your imagination.
Again, it does not have to be an Olympian event. It links in your life. An Australia study said that people who climaxed at least 3 times a week had 50% lower chance of dying from any medical reasons other than those compared to those who climaxed once a month.
Well, it's definitely
good for your heart.
It's definitely a hard exercise.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's interesting you mentioned Olympian event. I mean, they do, as far as I understand, at the last few Olympics, they had over 100,000 condoms.
Yeah, I think the average was 37 per Olympian that they passed out for the 2-week period or whatever.
Hopefully after they did their events.
Yes. And it could, again, if you're living longer, it shifts your middle age a little further out and keeps you fit. Also, anywhere from, for men, it's like 4 calories, and women, it's 3 calories per minute, or an average event is about 100 calories overall. So anywhere between, over a year's time, on average, you're burning between 5,000 and 7,500 calories.
By the way, be careful not to count calories. Just have fun. It's interesting to have the information, but please don't have a calorie calculator there on the bed.
Take off your Fitbit.
Yes, very much so. I better probably register another 10,000 steps.
Oh, I had a friend of mine who we went on a walk, and the trainer that was with us, he said, I had my Fitbit on this morning, and I was a bit amorous, and it already said I did 6,000 steps.
So, you see, there you go.
Don't know if it's true or not, but it was pretty funny. It for ladies, it can actually ease a lot of those cramps. Because of the muscle contractions.
It varies from person to person, the benefits that they get, the age that they're at, how active they are, whether they're having sex with a partner, they're having sex with themselves. By the way, try not to have sex while you're jogging with yourself. This is, something you can reserve for more private areas.
Didn't you mention in our conversations prior to the show that many or a few or a mentionable number of car accidents are from drivers that are trying to have a good time in their driver's seat?
Yeah, they get too carried away. One of my subspecialties is I treat sexual addiction, and there are more than a few car accidents out there that are caused by people masturbating in their cars. Of course, I don't think that's going to appear necessarily in any police reports.
No, I doubt it. It helps lower your risk of incontinence, especially with ladies.
One will have many benefits. They have to, again, check out their body, and depending on what their age, they should always check with their doctor about how much activity they're doing versus what type of medications they have.
And again, it does prevent heart attacks. Specifically here, if you have sex 3 times a week, it could really reduce your risk of having a heart attack or a stroke by about 30%.
Now, again, this is something you always have to check with a medical professional, because if you've already had heart problems, the advice may be different depending on your physiological condition.
It increases your attractiveness to others because it releases pheromones.
Well, see, regardless of the pheromones, and that's a possibility, but just feeling good in your mind and in your body, you're going to have a natural glow to you, which will cause you to have all sorts of wonderful things happen. By the way, it isn't just sex is in one corner. It all interacts in terms of your life. So if you're having a good sex life, you're more likely to do better in your business, you're better to have better family relations, you're doing better at times, hopefully, with your finances, and so it all flows together. And so also realize, of course, if somebody has an off day with business, they may not be that great at sex that night. So it's part of understanding and communication, but all of it interacts together. It isn't that you just put your sex off in one corner.
And one of the advantages I read, we'll stumble on it, but along those lines is if you have sex in the morning, it really does spill over the whole day, and you just might do your job better.
Well, that is one of the delights that you can get many extra benefits in terms of just feeling good with your heart and your mind. And the main thing is you feeling good with yourself. It's about self-esteem. And many of us grow up with feeling that we're not okay. And sometimes we feel so much better with sex, but you also have to worry, at times you got to watch out that you're feeling really good as far as the results with sex, and that you're not just using it as a way to medicate temporarily, not feeling good enough about yourself, and then you're causing more problems by having sex in situations that aren't healthy for yourself.
Exactly. Again, making you look younger, it smooths out, specifically more for the ladies, smooths out wrinkles.
Well, we
again, because of the oxytocin that is released, it makes your skin a little more plumper, and it really works great if women are following menopause. A couple times a week, oxytocin levels were twice as high than their counterparts who abstained.
Well, you have to see what feedback you get from your partner. And the main thing is to enjoy and explore. And all these benefits that we're talking about are going to vary from person to person and body to body. And you'll just, through the choosing to experiment, to what extent, you'll learn about your body and your mind. And that's part of the reason to have sex. It's one of the ways to better learn yourself and your partner if you choose.
We've already talked about this. Improve your self-esteem. There was a University of Texas study that kind of proved that more people felt more confident. Lowers your blood pressure. A Scottish study and Brigham Young University, of all places, said basically frequent intercourse lowers blood pressure.
The wonderful thing is there's a number of studies out there and something you can learn. And by the way, I always encourage people to check on the internet, but make sure you check the source. That you're not going to a site where they say, part of great sex is worshiping cabbage or something of that nature. Look at sites like the Mayo Clinic and
WebMD.
Yes, exactly. And those sites that really have some credibility versus some, anybody could say anything out there in the internet. So make sure you're going to a number of sources and checking that they're reputable as you learn more ways to enjoy yourself.
Well, I've learned the internet is great because you can find anything you want. But the internet is also bad because you can find anything you want.
Yeah, the caveat in there is making sure that what you find really gives you real healthy information.
It banishes depression, especially with the ladies. Serotonin is the body's key antidepressant, and it's the happy hormone, and it definitely lifts our mood. So you're less likely to be depressed. Women who had sex were less likely to be depressed than those that didn't have it.
And one of the things that, when we're talking about this, one of the things I want you to remember when I said that you don't have to have sex to be a healthy person out there. Remember, a lot of the things we're talking about is physical interaction. So cuddling gives an amount of this. And
yes,
actually, I think part of sex is really making love is having a sense of connection. And a lot of cuddling can produce a lot of the positive benefits we're talking about, whether or not you choose to be sexual at all or at that moment.
Well, here's another article. It says, since your oxytocin levels stabilize 10 minutes after you have an orgasm, cuddling post-coitus will keep the good vibes going, suggests Dr. Harberbeck, who's a sex psychologist. Oxytocin can be released not only during masturbation and intercourse, but also during close touching. Plus, not cuddling is the biggest mistake we can make in bed. She's more likely to find the experience, quote, very pleasurable if you simply spend 6 to 10 minutes cuddling with her afterward.
And this applies to any partners out there, that the main thing is to have a sense of connection. See, and one of the most positive ways to really be utilizing sex in your life is to further a connection with yourself and with your partner. And by the way, what I want you to realize is the first pillar of any healthy relationship or healthy sex out there is how you feel in your mind, and then how you share that with a partner and how you learn from them and how you learn from yourself, because there are many ways to pleasure yourself and learn about that. And by the way, sharing that with a partner, how you pleasure yourself and how they pleasure themselves in terms of masturbation, is one of the ways to learn about great sex with that partner, because what turns on one person totally turns off another. So the way to find out really what pleases somebody is to ask them. Too many people assume that whatever they did with their previous partner is going to please this current partner. So that's one of the things that I encourage in terms of communication.
Yeah, you know the definition of the word assume, right, Doctor? ASSUME makes an ass out of you and me. Thanks for tuning in. If you've just tuned in, you are tuned into Great Sex with Dr. Dawn here at UBN Radio Network. We're here every other Monday at 7 o'clock p.m. Pacific time here at UBN. You can find us on Stitcher, iTunes, Spotify, and we're going to be on YouTube. And you can reach us on Facebook. If you have a question, you just don't want to call in. This is a call-in show, and our number is area code 323-843-2826. That's 323-843-2826. You can write us at info, I-N-F-O, at greatsexwithdrdawn.com. And I'm your host, Walt Lusk. Another one is, it's slashes. I love this word. Slashes stress. Research has shown that touching and cuddling, again, we're talking about that aspect, during and after reduces the body's level of cortisol, which is the hormone that is secreted when you're stressed.
And one of the things that's important in enjoying sex and choosing to have sex out there is that you are being healthy in reducing stress and that you're not raising stress. That's the important thing.
Absolutely. And this one, I don't know if you ladies are going to like this or not, but it does cure a headache.
Well, it could. It's not an absolute.
I said could.
Yeah. We're never giving medical advice here. We're just giving some varied possibilities.
Because making love causes a surge in the love hormone, which is oxytocin, plus other feel-good endorphins, which can ease pain. Women have reported that pain from both headaches and arthritis are improved after sex.
Well,
and you know what? We have a call. That's our first call. Hey, thanks for calling. You're on the couch with Dr. Dawn.
Hi, I have a question for Dr. Dawn.
Well, thanks so much. Your name?
Angel.
Hey, Angel. Thanks so much.
Hello, Angel. How can I be of help to you?
I don't even know if the answer is attainable, but my question is, in all your experience as a sex expert and whatnot, what is the most common fantasy that men have that they really, really wish would come true? Like the one they want the most to come true, if that makes sense?
Yes, it would be being with two women at the same time and also watching those women together.
Okay.
And that's
okay.
There are many, many fantasies out there, and again...
What's the second one?
Oh, the second one would be basically that the two women are just pretty much only pleasing the guy and ignoring each other because they're so enamored of him.
I would think that would be the first one, right?
It depends.
No?
The men go crazy at the thought of seeing two women together, so it really varies.
As a woman, I'm sorry. Wait, let me take that back. Okay.
All right, it depends. And again, you know, well, that's I was talking in terms of there's so many fantasies out there. It's usually one of the big fantasies, regardless of orientation, is threesomes. It's out there.
Right.
The other thing is some people fantasize. Now, by the way, when we talk about fantasy, many people enjoy fantasies, or like one of the ways to be excited is to tell your partner fantasy, but you may not necessarily act them out. So some people think about sex in public, or they think about doing naughty things like they're over at a family reunion and they go into a closet. Some people actually do that. Other people just love to talk to their partner about, hey, we could do this, and they love to get sort of more turned on talking about it.
Okay, so here's another question.
Yes.
I don't want to take up too much time.
Oh, no, you're being great with these questions.
Go for it.
How would you encourage, say you both say, oh, that'd be a fun fantasy at the family's house, go in the bathroom or a secret closet, whatever. How would you encourage your partner if they're reluctant, but you kind of both were on the same page for a minute?
Oh, you mean how to do it in real life, or encourage them to do it in real life?
Yeah, in real life. Like you guys have that fantasy to do it at your family's house or something, in a indiscreet place.
Right. And some people do that. I mean, they do this in all sorts of places. You know, there is the Mile High
Right.
Club. I don't advocate anybody breaking any laws out there, so make sure you've got your own private aircraft.
Right.
Charter an airplane. Okay.
But the
Thank
main
you for
thing,
that.
you see, Angel, you're raising a great question, which is fantasies. Sometimes people want to
Yeah.
make them real. So the first thing you do is
Right.
you talk about them in private, and you talk about them
Right.
away from the situation. You're like,
Safe.
because
yeah, make it safe.
yeah, you want to make it
Right.
safe because you don't want somebody to do something and then be caught in the middle of the family gathering and then have all
Freak
sorts of
out.
negative
Yeah.
consequences. You want to sort of plan this out and make sure that they're going to feel good with it afterwards. So that's why you
Right.
talk it out ahead of time.
So over Thanksgiving,
Okay, that makes sense.
over Thanksgiving, you're
thanks for
talking about
that.
stuffing the
Thanks for your
bird.
advice.
You're so
And
welcome.
good luck with your show.
All right, thanks so
Angel.
much, Angel.
So over Thanksgiving, if you want to stuff the bird, that probably might not be what you want to do.
Well, it depends which bird you're stuffing.
Yeah, but that only works on Thanksgiving. Well, maybe Christmas too.
I think, yeah, there was something, I think important was complaint. There was a pie involved with the family.
We're going to save that one for another show.
All right.
It does give you, as I think I mentioned this, give yourself an all-over healthy glow. This was done in England, and basically an aerobic exercise obviously does that. But physical sex pumps higher levels of oxygen into your body, and of course gives you that healthy glow.
Well, I think we're probably going to have a lot of makeup companies trying to sabotage this show with that advice.
Yes, I would imagine so. Let's see. We talked about curing headache, stress. It kicks your insomnia and improves you sleeping better because it promotes relaxation and sleepiness.
It does. I mean,
Maybe more towards men, but
well, particularly, if orgasm, occurs, there are more than a few people, both men and women, who can feel very delightfully comfy afterwards, and then maybe going to sleep. Although, you've got to make sure that you don't fall asleep on your partner when they would like more to happen.
that's true. And if someone's a little more exhausted and sleepy, that doesn't work.
Yeah, that's something to watch out for, though you can talk with your partner. Hopefully they realize if you've had a very long day that you might fall asleep.
Yes, but you might wake up later.
Especially if your partner's pinching you.
Yes. It strengthens your bones because, again, a lack of oxytocin thins the bones. And so if you have more oxytocin, you have stronger bones.
Well, let me put a disclaimer there that please don't have a lot of sex and try jumping off buildings.
Yes. For guys, I know this is true. I've read other places, especially if you're over 50, it reduces the chance and risk of prostate cancer. In other words, a similar situation, if you don't use it, you might lose it.
All right. And remember, when we're putting these things forth, we're seeing these various articles out there, and everybody has different takes on what to do physically. And that always, as far as the ultimate advice, that, again, you have to talk with your particular physician about that.
Yes, indeed. And lastly, on this one, we're going to have a few more, is it really does make you feel better all day. It says, making love first thing in the morning was not only more upbeat for the rest of the day, but also benefited from a stronger immune system. And along those lines, it's proven that it sharpens your mind.
And that's something I think that's very important to realize, is if you're really into sex and you're excited by it and you feel really good either with yourself or with a partner, it's a matter of just feeling more lively, and that leads to alertness in terms of really embracing life. So that's one of the things to explore again. And when you're doing something that feels really good for you afterwards, that's always one of the things I'm asking you to assess when you try different things sexually, is that afterwards you also feel great with what you've done.
And it really does help your future self. If you are active in your middle life, chances are you're probably going to be active later in life. And as you get older, and that's linked, again, to better health and better happiness and longevity, and reduces you being sick and getting prostate cancer and all that.
And that's something, again, that the important thing is to feel healthy. And there's many ways to go about it. And of course, we're talking about one aspect of life. Of course, getting exercise, this is one particular exercise, but the other things is a cross benefit. If you're out there exercising, doing walks or going to the gym, all these things can have a positive effect on sex, and sex can have a positive effect on them. So you're trying to get a wonderful rotation of delights in your life. And so it isn't only come down to sex, but sex can be such a wonderful part of life.
Yes, it can. But being the fact that we're trying to be positive about this, a lot of you are probably going, well, yeah, but, there's probably a few reasons of why not to have sex. So just to be a little bit balanced, I thought we'd touch on a couple of things that may impede us ability to have sex. And if you're kind of aware of this, might help you improve things. First one is of course stress. Now we know sex is a way to reduce stress, but if you're stressed out beforehand, or you just had an awful day, or you're overwhelmed at work, or the kids are just driving you batty, negating the energy aspect, you might just not be up for doing anything.
And if you try to have sex when you're not ready, or there's something negative happening in the relationship, like you're not communicating well, sex unfortunately can add to stress. So again, we're talking about healthy, balanced sex where there's caring and you're feeling connected. But sometimes you need to realize not to push sex when there isn't a good connection going on, because you can increase stress. Plus, there are situations where people unfortunately can get abusive with sex towards themselves and others. And so you're always looking to understand yourself and make sure that you're in a situation that feels really good in many ways, particularly in your sex organ and your head.
The next one is body insecurity.
Yeah, unfortunately,
it's
that
very
stops too
common.
many people.
Absolutely, especially if you're worried about your appearance. Maybe you feel bloated. Maybe you're not upbeat. Again, you're just mentally trying to lift yourself up. It just isn't happening. That's going to be an inhibitor.
And one of the things that many people don't realize, and I at times in my practice, particularly in my West LA office, I've worked with celebrities, some of whom you would likely recognize, and I've worked and seen situations where women supposedly externally are so beautiful, but they hate a part of their bodies or all of their bodies, and you would be shocked by some of them and how they look externally to other people. But if in your head you don't feel that you're good enough, it translates into interfering with your sex life. And this is something to understand. And also that this isn't just the providence of women, that there are many men out there that are going through all sorts of issues about how they see themselves and their bodies. And so it goes across all genders and orientations, and is something to understand about yourself and potentially about your partner, because that can interfere with sex if you don't understand that they have issues about how they view their bodies.
It reminds me of a book that basically is one of the foundations of the self-improvement industry. It was written by Maxwell Maltz in the early 60s. He was one of the first plastic surgeons, and he was so new at it, he had to go learn about it from Germany. And he would do these amazing improvements of women's faces because they didn't like their face, and he would be thrilled at the result of what he did, and he'd hand them a mirror, and they would look at him and say, "I don't see any difference." Mm-hmm. And he realized it was more internal than external.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that people have to look at. There's so many ways, unfortunately, that sex is sabotaged, and our lives are sabotaged, which is, by body identity, the pressures of society in various ways, particularly with people struggling with really being accepted for their orientation. We fortunately have a world that's changing, but there's still a lot of pressure and there's a lot of discrimination regarding bodies and orientation out there. And especially we learn within ourselves to really, unfortunately, in many ways, discriminate against ourselves. That's one of the things that very much interferes with healthy sex. Another
big issue is medical issues.
Of course.
Whether it be limited function, stiffness, fatigue, pain, arthritis, swelling, dryness, can impact it. And basically, if those situations continue, we strongly encourage you to consider consulting a physician.
Of course, and some of the things can be, like dryness is one of the simplest things to deal with, which is simply to use a water-based lubricant. By the way, why you always hear water-based is that a petroleum jelly, for instance, will wind up deteriorating a condom. That's why you always hear the word water-based. And also, it saves a lot of messiness because literally water-based can be easily washed off of sheets or off yourself. So that's a simple thing, but the other things, and one of the things that is very important to note is if you're experiencing any painful intercourse, that's particularly something to take to a physician.
Absolutely. One of my pet peeves is smart devices, and in some cases, it's not real smart. We've got an inordinate amount of technology in the bedroom, whether it be a television or you've got your cell phone or another phone. Point is, taking them out of the bedroom, turn them off, and focus on the most important thing that happens to be in the room, and that's your partner.
And you would be amazed with how many stories I've heard of people being in the middle of sex and suddenly the phone rings and their partner answers it. Oh no! Yeah, that's pretty disturbing as far as interfering what could be great sex.
Yes, that could be very much coitus interruptus.
Very much so.
You know, I mean,
it could be a cell phone over the headers.
I mean, what the heck is voicemail and everything else for? I mean, leave a flippin' message, for goodness sakes.
Yeah.
And lastly, sex warning conditions. Sex desire can be compromised if you're just not feeling emotionally connected to your partner. Rebooting that connection can be as simple as taking a kids-free weekend getaway, carving out regular time to hang out, or just sending simple texts back and forth can have a huge impact. Emojis really do work, guys.
Well, yes, and then the more important thing is the words that go with them. Some people misinterpret emojis.
Yes, and they're becoming more interesting and more entertaining. But you know what? The one thing is, we are definitely wired for sex. We are wired to be connected physically, mentally, and emotionally. And the show, we're going to be addressing all aspects of that and all aspects of human sexuality, because it really is not only pleasurable, but as you've heard, it's healthy, and it can improve our health, and is amazingly beneficial.
And this is something that I want you to get into yourselves, is again, you're a great person whether you choose to have sex or not. Whatever your body type is, you can still be a sexy person as long as you feel sexy in your head. And we're going to do everything possible for you to get more in touch with your sexuality and feeling great within yourself. And that's really the basis of this show. That's why I talk in terms of great sex. Great sex is you feeling good inside your head.
Well, probably other places too, but yeah, I mean it's a
help.
But it is an inside job, and as I've stated, and Dr. Don's going to say a lot, it's the most important sex organ is the space between our ears.
It comes from inside our ears and goes outside. And then becomes an outside job if you're exploring well and you're communicating together. So.
And so, if you want to connect with us, you can write us at info@greatsexwithdrdon.com. And you're going to be able to find the show on Stitcher, iTunes, soon to be iHeartRadio, Spreaker, and we are also going to put this up on YouTube. So we're going to be starting a community on YouTube, and you can watch the shows and comment on there as well. And so if you have any questions, feel free to write us, and we promise we read every single email that comes in, and we will address every question. So if you've got one and you just don't have the heart to pick up the phone and dial a number, or you're busy during the show, write us, info@greatsexwithdrdon.com. Now, how do they get a hold of you, Doctor?
They can look on my website, maximizesuccess.com, or they can check on this site. There's a phone number for me for appointments. They can call me directly at...
you can give the number. I'll go for it.
Yes, it's 310-405-9814 for appointments. 310-405-9814. And of course, I appreciate the gift of whatever you share in terms of you're going through things, and so we'd love to hear from you. I want to be of help to you, so let me know either privately in terms of an appointment or here on the show, and we're going to be here for you, and we look forward to hearing how you explore and how you find great sex for yourselves. And so this is Dr. Don saying, remember, please enjoy yourself. And if you can't enjoy yourself, please enjoy someone else. The other important thing is I want to tell you to just have the best of pleasure. Thank you for your listening tonight.
Yes, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for calling. And we'll look forward to you next time. We're here every other Monday here at UBN at 7 o'clock Pacific here on the West Coast, here at Gower Gulch at ubnradio.com. So we're going to close out until next time. God bless everyone.